birthday, Mr. Nichols.
Are you going to put on Baby Shark next?
Velo Vocabulary.
Welcome now to the Crank Revolution Podcast, your source for cycling shenanigans. Listen now to our hosts, the purveyors of pedals, as we teach you more about cycling every single episode. So sit right back, pop a cold one, and enjoy our show.
And welcome back to another exciting episode of Crank Revolution. Today is a very special day. Today is the birthday of sponsored rider Mike Nichols. He decided to come here on his birthday to spend it with all of his bicycling friends and you. Today's topic is one that's very near and dear to our hearts. How can we help you be informed when you go into that bicycle shop? What are some of the common questions that we hear working in bicycling shops? And how can we help you?
I think I would like to have a bike that's good for the paved trails.
For those paved trails, looking at a flat bar hybrid bike.
You can go into something that has a little bit skinnier tires, especially if you're going to be doing just mainly paved
I need to
trails.
exercise. My daughter wants to go for a ride. She wants to go around town.
We can go into a couple of different styles of bikes. We can go into a flat bar road bike. We can go into...
So how long do you want to ride the bike?
Literally haven't ridden since high school.
Here, ride this.
How long do you want to ride the bike?
Where or what surface would you want to ride the bike on?
Continue my cardiac
grip the
breathing.
trail or grip the
I want
limestone.
to jump this off of a roof. Where or what kind of surface are you going to ride the bike on?
When buying a bike, whether it's your first bike or your fifth, there are a lot of common questions. So to help out our listeners, if they're going to go into a bike shop and talk to a bike salesman, what are some of the questions they should consider before going in? Not just rely on the salesman, but to know what they're looking for in a bike.
I always start with, I got 5 questions I really kind of hammer down. And that's how long, how far, how fast, how often, and then where and what surface do you want to ride on. Ideally for me is if everyone had answers to those, that really kind of helps me to understand what their perspective is to what a bike is and what they want to do with it.
Why does how long matter? What's the difference in the bike buying decision that'll matter of how far you're going to go?
Well, see, you just put 2 together there. You said how long and how far. Long is, for me, typically a question about time duration that you want to ride for, and then how far, which helps me to also understand how fast you want to ride. But for someone to kind of hammer out and knock down, if it's I want to ride for 60 minutes at a time and do 30 miles at 15 miles an hour, that math does not work. And so we got to kind of work to get those all into line as to being one consistent answer.
I remember when I got started, I was lucky to go around the block and I felt like I was dying with 130 heartbeat just sitting down drinking water. You had me within 6 weeks riding a cyclocross bike, commuting to work.
Because I was obviously there behind you, pushing you on the... No, I wasn't. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, because I didn't really do all that much. I just said, yes, you can do this. And I said, yes, here, try, go.
I'm just trying to imagine the amount of free time you had to literally ride
Just
behind
coach
him, push him
to
along.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that was obviously what I did.
I
Yeah.
can picture that.
I didn't just say, yeah, ride bikes. They're dope. They're fun. Go ride it.
And I think this part of the magic, though, is if you were to ask me on my first day, how long, how far, how fast, I didn't know any of those things. I didn't know how far, except maybe I might commute to work 17 miles one way. And I'm like, hey, man, should I do that? Everyone does that. Of course you should. But you inspire people to go much further. I don't think we always know the answers to all those. Is that okay when you walk into a bike shop?
Absolutely okay. And that's why someone like myself, and actually like most everyone in this room who is now just a seasoned cyclist in one way or another, is a good person to kind of guide someone along as to, trying to understand how they perceive what a bike is, what it can do, and what they want to do with that vehicle.
We have Merck, who is a store manager.
Yep.
TC's been a store manager and owner now. Greg, Mike, you guys have been cyclists. This is an interesting conversation to say. When you walk into a bike shop, you're looking for a bike. There's something you need or guidance or anything we can do to help. How do we get someone to be an informed buyer when they walk into the bike shop? So what is the most important question you would say, the first question, when somebody walks in and goes, I don't know what I want to ride my bike?
Well, I mean, the most important question there is, okay, what do you want to do? And so, yeah, and I also love to just ask that question. So what do you want to do? My favorite answer to get to that, I want to ride a bike. I'm like, yes, we all are on the same page here. This is correct. Because that's the smart...
Well done. You've come to the right location.
You answered one of the 3 questions.
That's a smart answer that I would give.
Yeah, but then you can break it down to what you were saying before. How long, how far, how fast, what surface, and how often.
If someone is struggling to answer those questions, my next step is to, okay, cool, here's a mountain bike. Here's a hybrid bike and here's a road bike. Go ride them. And then someone's going to come back from one of those and say, this. I like whatever this is.
Yeah.
So
Right,
big.
right,
They'll
right.
ride one of them and go, oh, I think this is what I want. And you go, yes, that's your passion. That's awesome. What are some things to consider? If you're walking to a bike shop and saying, I want to ride a bike, what do you have to think about? So when you walk into the shop, you know.
Oh, I think the biggest thing is, what are you going to do with the bike? It doesn't matter what kind of discipline that you're doing. If you're just walking into that bike shop for the very first time, it should be what you want to do with that bike. I want to ride with my kid. I want to get in shape. I just want to ride around the block. It all depends on what that answer to that question is.
Well, the reason we want to do this, I think, the most is when I walked into a particular bike shop, I said, I want to ride with my kid. They sold me a hybrid that was for somebody 6'3". I didn't know this until I came to see TC, and he goes, is that frame yours? So we want to make you informed enough that you can actually live your bike dream without having to rely on the salespeople. You should be an informed buyer.
Are you trying to imply that buying your first bike can be overly complicated for no reason at all?
Yes. Maybe it can.
Well, perhaps you should be able to rely on your salesperson to get the measurements
Hopefully.
right.
You hope so.
Well,
but
here's the thing to interrupt you is it also helps to go to a reputable bike shop like, I don't know, Crank Revolution when it opens.
Yeah, this would be a reputable bike shop.
We're reputable before we open.
Yeah, well, hey.
I think that just won the
I will
Grammy
say,
for least.
they got the best
least
damn
amazing
mechanic.
plug.
They got the best damn mechanic around.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes.
One thing I really do think matters is who you run into the bike shop has a big part of how much you get into cycling. TC got me into cycling. He saw what I wanted to do, which was ride a bike with my daughter. And then through a little inspiration, next thing you know, I was riding 150 miles a week commuting to work.
I mean, I feel you're still giving me too much credit. All I did was say, yes, you can, and here's a bike to do it.
Actually, no, that's not too much credit. The fact that you said, yes, you can.
Okay.
Saying yes, you can to somebody and helping them find their passion and then help push them along and support them in that doesn't happen in a normal retail buying experience.
Jeremy, you were the guy who said, yes, you can to me.
Oh, don't.
Right?
No.
So, yeah,
No.
it was, that was what, it was passing it on. TC to you, you to me.
But I'm going to knock TC down a peg.
There we go.
Because my first bike did not have TC in mind. No, he was not even in the room. I went to a different shop. I walked in there and said, hey guys, this is what I want to do. And they said, great, buy this overpriced frame, this overpriced bike, and you're going to have a great time with it. You have the experience where you have someone that's willing to listen and understand what you want. And then you have the experience where they just want to sell you the bike that they know you're going to buy because you don't know better.
And that's true.
That was what you had.
And that's what I ended up buying.
Well, actually, so Jeremy was not part of my bicycle buying experience. I encountered much the same thing.
You can't always count on the salesperson at the bike shop really breaking down what you want to do. Sometimes it takes someone to explore and say, hey, you could do this to really find out what you want to do. Because where I am today is so far different from where I started.
But the big difference is you need to have someone that has experience in the various types of cycling in order to ask you the right questions to lead you.
But
I think that's key, to lead you. You coming in, you probably have not thought about this.
But it's also, I'd say, it's an unreasonable ask for every bicycle mechanic and every bicycle salesperson to have proper experience with every single discipline, every single type of cycling that exists in the world.
Yeah. But you need
I've
someone
got a lot.
You need someone that'd be patient enough to listen to what you have to say and let you, as you put it, hey, go ride this.
And that's one of the things that's so crucial, whether you're a beginner or whether you're trying to experience a new area of cycling, is finding that great relationship in your local bike shop. Now let's take a moment, though, to go to TC in From the Mechanic's Mouth.
Hey guys, today's tech tip is grips and bar tape. Those are some really, really important parts of the bike. That's where you're actually holding on and steering the bike. As they start to break and wear down, you definitely want to replace them. I see a lot of my riders with bar tape that I've seen that's either shifted, twisted, moved, bent, and started to warp as they've been riding, and it really should be replaced. A better contact, better grip, better handling is going to make you a much safer ride. Mountain bike, on the other hand, is a lot more extreme of a conversation because as mountain bike grips are installed, they can start to tear and rip, and that rip and tear is going to get so much worse as it goes along. If you tear a grip off a bike, that is a very dangerous circumstance. So everybody take a look at your grips, take a look at your bar tape. If you can adjust it and make it better, let's do that. Otherwise, let's just replace it. And that's from the mechanic's mouth.
And that is from the mechanic's mouth. The thing about bar tape is it's kind of your first point of contact in your bike or your grips. It's also one of the first things you can customize.
You know what? It's not even customizing. I actually have my gravel bike, that bar tape on it, because it is so uncomfortable. It's not a pleasure to ride. Having a nice, comfortable bar tape to you is going to make the bike more comfortable, and you're going to want to ride it more.
Actually, on my gravel bike, I agree, because where I leave my hands the most is where it fails the quickest. And then I end up grabbing other areas of the bar, just trying to compensate. It's like, oh, this is terrible. It's so unpleasant, but I don't want to change the bar tape.
I've become this guy that I didn't want to become. I have started color matching my bar tape.
No,
To
it's
what?
great.
Your
It's
frame?
To what,
To
though?
my
To what?
frame. The new build I'm doing is actually might possibly to the spokes that I have that are
Oh.
colored spokes. This comes from, I have so many bikes and I just need to differentiate them from everybody else. But the one thing that I didn't think about, because I'm a road guy, is mountain bike grips.
So we've been talking about buying your first bike, but a lot of this still can apply to your second bike, because your second bike, what you want to get, and a lot of that is you have X. Now you can have X plus or something completely different like Y. You can have a completely different bike. When you're looking at your second bike, if you already have your first one, is what can you make that's different about that riding experience for you?
Are we talking about the rule number
Plus
N+1?
N
Yes.
plus one rule number. It's not rule number N+1, but that
No,
would
it's
be a
not.
much
Oh, wait,
easier
no.
rule number
TC's
for it.
got this nailed, though. If you own one bike already, how do you fully round out that wheelhouse to get the best biking
Well,
experience?
you need a lot more than two.
So a lot of us start on a hybrid.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Always.
A lot of
Yeah.
us start on a hybrid. So, and the hybrid is a good, solid starting point. So I bought my hybrid leaning toward pavement. As hybrids go, it was faster on pavement than mini hybrids. That said, it still wasn't nearly as fast as any sort of road bike would be on pavement.
And so, yeah, road is a very large category, as always. Gravel has been growing and growing, and gravel bikes have really come a long way. They're much more properly appropriate for that kind of, gravel off-road adventure riding. Mountain biking in all of its different forms and styles, from cross-country to downhill. There's so much variation. And so someone who's looking to buy a mountain bike living in Illinois is a very different mountain bike than someone looking to buy a mountain bike living in Utah.
All right. So, TC, you and I have both been managers in the industry for a while. What if somebody comes in and they want their second bike? What's the follow-up questions that you have for them?
Oh, that's one of my favorite ones, because I get to ask one of my favorite questions, which is, okay, so you enjoy this is working well. What could be better? For me, it's ones where you get to kind of hammer down with that rider as to what they've been doing. And then now they start to have that concept of where they see their cycling journey going. Is it better if it's a lighter, faster bike? Is it better if it's a totally different bike that now they have their road bike, they have their mountain bike now? They, do we completely change the style of riding that they do? Do we change the speed or the use of it? We get to now more specialized to what kind of riding they want to do for their second bike.
And for the second bike, the thing is, I always wanted to get a really good mountain bike, but there's so many different types of mountain bike. There's hardtails, there's full suspension, there's downhill bikes. And I think that gets a lot of people confused when you go in to buy a mountain bike.
I mean, there's a lot of differences in what the bike is, what the bike's going to cost, how much travel it has, how it's designed. Is it meant to be pedaled, or is it meant to be only used for chair lifts or some kind of lift service, i.e. trucks as well?
Uber?
Unfortunately, don't have Uber shuttles. So shuttling
Midway down a hill.
nothing down a hill. Everything here is talking about shuttling your bike up a hill, up a
Okay.
mountain.
All
And
right.
so chairlifts are a great way to get your bike to the top of the mountain to go then ride it down and have a lot of fun. Truck shuttles also work very well. You get 6 people in the truck, 6 bikes in the back, and then everyone goes up, and then one person drives the truck down and 5 people ride the bike
That
down.
would be me.
It is what, riding?
No,
Oh, it's
driving.
great. I mean, it's fun when you're driving somebody else's truck and you're like, cool, I've got my bike and it's just bouncing around in the back and I'm just trying to not hit my friends as they're crossing the road at high speeds. It's very exciting.
Paint the picture. You're downhill, high speed. What's the speed?
So, I mean, for mountain bikes, speed is very different than downhill on a road bike. So, if you're hitting 20, 30 miles an hour on a mountain bike, those are insanely fast and dangerous
Oh,
speeds.
thank God, because I would be doing about 9.
I've
See,
seen bigger
but what's-
downhills, though.
What's
just
really,
saying.
really great is when you have a trail that is so steep.
And so narrow.
No, not narrow.
Not
Just
even narrow?
just so steep that you can brake and your wheels just slide. So the best thing to do
gravity and friction
is to just ride it out.
Damn you, physics!
And so, yeah, you got to just, there's one spot in Bountiful, Utah, Bountiful Downhill Trails where, you can hit the brakes. It's not going to do anything. You got a hard right hand at the bottom. So you just drag brake that rear brake, just let it slide through, and you just kind of force it into the berm. And then you really hard corner at the bottom just to try and stay alive.
Now, this is a complete conversation on bike handling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But kind of, let's bring it back to your second bike.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, we're talking about like, if we're going to try and define what the different disciplines of cycling are, that's not a valuable conversation in this. It's, for me, it's what do you have, and then what can be different, and what can you do differently. And so this is not the time for us to start telling people what all exists in the world, because it's way too big of a conversation. It's
very fair.
Understand, take into account what bike do you have, and then what can be better, what could be different, And so for a lot of us, if you're just in road cycling, and a lot of people bought that aluminum bike as their first kind of road bike, and they want to go more into road riding. Cool. If a carbon road bike is your next step, that aluminum bike, that first bike you bought, still has a lot of value. That's a good bike too. Yeah, if you can put fenders on it, you can turn that into your rainy day bike. Aluminum bikes are great to put on an indoor trainer for us living in Chicago. So that's kind of the concept here. If we're going to stay in the same line, the same vein, the same style of bike, understand the value that exists in that first bike and creating it as a more specialized tool for, that dirty day riding, that trainer riding, those purposes.
So your point there, Chris, is that just because you get a new, better bike doesn't mean that the old bike becomes garbage immediately.
Nope, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
With personal host journeys, where did you start? Where did you end up? For me, I went from a commuter to a touring person.
I think someone would just call that a tourer. Or a touring person. A tourer.
Touring isn't the
I love
touring
when
test.
Chris corrects Jeremy. It's great.
Can you tell the difference between a Jeremy and a real person? A touring test.
Hey-o.
So, Greg, where did you wind up?
So I started out on a hybrid flat bar bike, and I found myself doing a lot of road riding, gratuitous amounts, and also properly enjoying a lot of gravel riding. And if I had gone way back when, gotten to the Wayback Machine, talked to myself and said, hey, maybe you should have bought this bike instead, I would definitely tell myself to be more prepared for various surfaces I could be riding on, and maybe higher speeds and higher goals than what I was setting myself at that time. But as TC and I can totally relate to in 2019, we have someone on our weekly group ride that bought a flat bar hybrid, and they are keeping up with us at 17 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the ideal bike for that type of riding, but it's not saying you can't do that.
He's doing a fantastic job on that bike. He doesn't necessarily need to upgrade to a carbon road bike or aluminum road bike. He's doing fantastic on that bike.
He may choose to do so,
He may
Mark.
choose to do so. Absolutely. I'm not saying don't.
And that might be the
Actually,
step 2 of the training is where does he go next?
And
Maybe.
there it lies my point, which is often it's more the motor than the body.
Absolutely.
That makes a difference.
You know what, Mike? I agree with you 100% on that one.
But you won't know that until your second bike.
See, I always go to, I like for my bikes to have very specialized purposes. And this is now
the M+1.
So my first bike that I bought was a flat bar single speed that was the lowest cost bike because I wanted to have it when I went to college, and if it got stolen, I didn't worry.
And you know what? I am the oldest one out of this group, except for you, Mike. Sorry. I do live by the N+1, and I do have many bikes in my stable. My first bike was the original Stingray.
Yeah.
That was my first bike. And then I went to BMX because that's what you do. And then I went to...
You still have that Stingray?
No, I wish I did.
Describe this Stingray to us.
So
I can't. Here's the thing is I can't. It was an orange Stingray.
Was it an orange crate?
It wasn't an orange crate, though. It was
What
just
baseball card was in the spokes?
None, because I didn't believe in that. But it had the banana saddle that was a nice sparkle white, and with the high ape hanger bars with the orange grips.
Nice.
Oh, I love that bike. The only problem was it was a hand-me-down, so I hit a curb and damn thing exploded.
Like the frame?
No, the bottom bracket shot out. And it was
basically
terrible.
the frame.
Yeah,
So-
basically the frame.
So bits and pieces everywhere.
And then I went to BMX, and unfortunately that BMX fell apart because I bought a cheaper bike because that's all we can afford at the time. And then I walked into a store and said, I'm going to do road racing because I just read about the Tour de France. That's what I want to do. And from then it just kept growing. I actually had a customer come into my store and said, oh, it looks like you got a lot of customers. I'm like, no, that's just all my bikes. But I stick with the road and with the gravel. And if I didn't get introduced to gravel with mainly you guys, I don't think I would have ever gone there. I would just been one of the.
Us.
Yeah, I'm blaming you.
although, so one thing has changed, and probably I want to say the last 5 to 6 years in the industry, right? Which is that where manufacturers are going versus where they were when I started just 5 to 6 years ago, and certainly when you started several years before that.
Several.
It was
like 3.
My lifetime.
It was like
it
3.
was prior to that. It was specialized tools for specialized purposes.
Right. Yeah.
And now there's a big trend among the manufacturers to create all-purpose bikes. Now, it's not to say that they're truly all-purpose.
And so I'm going to say that the cycling industry always goes in curves and wave. And so it's right now we're on the, let's make one bike that does everything. That wave at that peak at that point, then this, oh wait, no, it's really great when bikes specialize.
The bikes they're producing now are more aero than they were 5-6 years ago.
Very true.
Oh,
But at the same time, they'll accept wider tires and handle a wider range of terrain.
To TC's point, though, many brands are selling multiple types of bikes that are all road. Is it really all road if you have multiple models of all road?
No, and that's important. That's a qualifier. There's no true bike that does everything well.
Well, so yeah, my segue on that is always that one bike that does everything doesn't do anything well. And that's why I like very specialized bikes where I have my aero road bike, I have my crit bike, I have my touring long ride bike, I have my cross bike, I have my gravel bike, I have my cross country bike, I have 2 folding bikes, I have my track bike, I have my fixie because it's actually I do.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Well, no. So that one is a fixie. It's meant and it's built in that style.
Still fixed geared.
What'd you say?
Yeah, I was going to say,
But
wasn't
it's
in
a-
episode 11 you said, no, it's fixed geared.
But I'll say that fixie is a style of bike, and there's an aesthetic to it.
Oh, all right. No, fair enough.
Yep.
Fair enough. TC, let me ask you. Now, I know you said it before. With your bikes, is there any one bike that you would just go, that'd be the bike I'm going to ride all week?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
Really?
Ooh.
So there is one bike that I own that has a very special place in my heart because it's the bike I rode from Mexico to Canada.
Ooh, what's the function? Oh, it's time for touring. But
so
what was it?
So that's a bike that as I've built it, it's existed as a touring bike. I've raced cyclocross with it, and I've had it as a complete road build.
Would you go as far to say this may be the perfect frame?
No, it's absolutely not.
Oh, well, in that case.
So it's
But it does several things sort of well.
Well, so it's a quick release disc cross bike, but the geometry on it's not too cross specific, but it looks amazing because it's a raw stainless steel fillet brazed frame.
Ooh.
And so this is my Soma triple cross. And anyone, like I understand what I just said, a raw stainless steel fillet brazed frame, that doesn't ring true to many people. So just Google Soma, SOMA, triple cross, and the photos come up, and that's what I like to ride.
Ooh.
Ruined my question.
Oh yeah, I know. You expect me to say no. In terms of buying your second bike, if you like the same bike that you have, but you want it in a different color, by all means, buy that bike in a different color. If it's going to, for me, where I always land on this is it the right thing to do? If it encourages you to ride more, then yes, it is the right thing to do.
Join us now as we expand your cycling nomenclature. Let's go to the keeper of cognition, the prophet of proficiency, the peddler of phraseology. Join us now with Professor Greg for Velo Vocabulary.
Oh, it's time for Velo Vocabulary. Do you know who this is? I am your substitute teacher, Gary. Greg can't make it today. All right, Ollie, get out your pens and paper. It is time for us to start doing our studying to get ready for this week's quiz.
Here we are again with the Princess Tea Party. We got 2 new words and some lovely tea that we're going to have.
Coffee! Iced coffee!
You two, the Giggle twins, I would never want to see on coffee or caffeine.
Iced coffee. I love it.
Welcome back. So the word for today, Peloton.
What is that?
Well, you explain it to me. What do you think
What's
a
that?
Peloton is?
Is that like a made up word or something?
It's
A Peloton. Stop making up words. Maybe. It's Peloton. I'm guessing it's something on a bike.
we have a baton to beat other riders with, and we have a made-up word
Or a bike part.
or a bike part, or as Sierra said, a poo pellet. Before they go crazy on the caffeine, because apparently I'm feeding them coffee this time, that will be all for the Princess Tea. The Giggle Sisters. Goodbye.
Biologists love really fancy and technical ways of describing groups of animals. For owls, you have a parliament. For parrots, a pandemonium. Frogs, an army. Crabs, a consortium. Bats, a cauldron. Ferrets, a proper business. Lemurs, conspiracy. And with cyclists, you call them a peloton.
As we break open the birthday cake for Mike Nichols' sponsored rider, it's time to give our final thoughts on the Tour de France. That was crazy.
Yeah, naturally.
Neener.
Oh,
Did you
God.
win, Mark?
I won. I
Yep.
won.
You won
the Tour de France.
Called it right.
I called it. I called it right. Not many people called it right.
No,
I called it
it's
right.
so hard to call
Actually,
it
I was
right.
listening
know.
to another
Well, yeah.
cycling podcast, and they were like, no one could have predicted who would win this one. I was like, I know a guy.
Merc. Right
Yeah.
here, this guy. TC, disagree with me or agree with me? That was a pretty cool Tour de France.
I mean, every year, regardless of how I want it to go or what ends up happening, it's always an amazing event and always worth watching. And it's so much fun watching that final stage. These guys have been working.
Can I
so
interrupt
hard.
you really
Yeah.
fast? How many champagnes did Bernal?
When I texted you, I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
are you watching right now?" Because they've just handed him 3 glasses of champagne, and he has just slammed them all at 21 and 320 days old.
Oh, I thought he was like 23 or
It's-
whatever.
Yeah,
but
the
he's
fourth,
a young guy.
fourth
Yeah.
youngest rider of all
Yeah.
time, the first ever Colombian to win. I mean, just an amazing feat, an amazing ride, an amazing race for that gentleman. And he was slamming champagne on that last day, which is so great. I mean, I don't know of another sport that has this where you get a 21-day stage race where literally the last day everything is already decided.
Yeah, it's a parade.
It's a
which
parade.
is I think is fantastic because if you look at the Tour of Italy, the Giro, the Tour of Spain, the Vuelta, they race
every day,
every single day. The Tour, it makes it a parade. It is a fantastic day. I mean, they were even at one point, all the Colombians that were in the race
they all
came
got
up to
together
the
for
front and they
photo
got a
shoot.
photo. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I thought was so cool about this year's Tour de France was we had Froome for years. Before that, Bradley Wiggins. Then we had Geraint Thomas. And I really thought he was going to be the one to carry the torch this year. But did he do well?
He did, well, second place.
Second place.
Yeah.
But here on TC, we brought it up earlier. I think it was just between us is that what was really cool about this year is everybody was a team player.
Yeah.
There was
Everyone's working
nobody
together.
that said, oh, I did it all by myself.
Yeah, absolutely not. And like Julian Alaphilippe, I mean, just the effort that man gave and the showing of just so much heart in that day by day and just trying to stay alive and trying to stay and do the best that he can.
Absolutely turned himself inside out to try and
I love
keep
how
that.
you use that, and I love that phrase so much.
I know, don't you? Anyways.
But I do I did call that the stage 19 was going to be the deciding stage. That's the small victory that I have. I mean, I didn't call Egan Bernal.
By the way, small.
Yeah, and then it was great to see Caleb Ewan get his third stage win. Oh man.
Yeah.
It's like that tour hangover is totally a thing.
Oh, I know it is.
That whole week after the tour, you just, what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I go on? I can't watch bike racing every morning.
Go on. Well, that's what I was talking to somebody. It's like, oh, the Tour de France was on. I'm like, yeah, it's over. I had no production, but I still don't want to work because now I'm sad.
Well, tune in next week to episode 13 of Crank Revolution as we carry you through your post Tour de France blues.
Tour hangover.
Now let's join Mark for another amazing tale of triumph and woe.
Now I want to tell you a story about a triumphant will. This story goes back to 2011, stage 9 of the Tour de France. This is about Johnny Hogerland. He was in a breakaway with 3 other guys. They had a chance to take the stage, but unfortunately, a TV car had to get by him. The TV car passed them on a very small road, knocked all 4 riders into a ditch. Unfortunately, poor Johnny wound up in barbed wire. Well, Johnny got back on his bike after visiting the doctor's car, got bandaged up. He actually finished the stage, and he finished the stage in time. To his reward, he did get the polka dot jersey for the day. He unfortunately did have to abandon because of how much pain he was in after a couple more stages. So, again, going back to what I keep saying, it's a hard man sport. You gotta keep riding.
Hello, friends. That has been another episode of the Crank Revolution podcast. Important announcement. We will be taking 1 week off, but don't fret. We'll be back on August 24th. Why? We're opening the Crank Revolution Bike Shop in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. As always, if there's something you'd love for us to cover on the podcast, email us at crankrevolutioncycling@gmail.com and feel free to drop us a rating anywhere you get your podcasts. See you again soon, friends.